Welcome, risk takers and trailblazers. This is the Offbeat Path, where we celebrate those who dare to color outside of the lines of life. I'm your host, Bob Healy, and each episode, I'm going to be sitting down with a guest who's made the bold choice to veer off the well-worn road and carve out their own unique path. From radical career pivots to life-altering personal transformations, we're going to explore the stories of those who have embraced the unconventional. And here's the twist. We're not just about the highlight reel. We're going to dive into the failures, the scrapes, the stumbles, the moments of doubt that come with choosing a road less traveled. Because sometimes the most valuable lessons come from those sharp left turns that didn't quite pan out as planned. So whether you're contemplating your own big leap or just craving a dose of out-of-the-box inspiration, you're in the right place. The Offbeat Path is your reminder that life's most rewarding adventures often begin where the map ends. Get ready to challenge the status quo, embrace the unexpected, and maybe find the courage to blaze your own trail. It's time to buckle up, take a sharp turn towards a life less ordinary. This is the Offbeat Path. Let's get to it. Sorry about the Yankees, buddy.
Lost, right? I mean, it was a wild way to lose it. I mean, I don't know if how much of it you watched.
I saw replays. I didn't stay up last night. Well, it was last night, right? It was the night
2 nights ago.
Yeah, it was 2 nights ago. Now I had kid stuff to do. So, but from what I understand, they were up 5-0.
Up 5-0.
And then when was that?
It's fifth inning.
Fifth inning?
Yeah, there was a little bit of a collapse.
I would say so.
At that point, it went. And what's funny, we were talking about Big Rick before. Jill's my partner, and her son is 8.
Uh-huh.
And he went to sleep at 5-0. It's like, dude, all right, Yanks are up.
Yeah.
Got Halloween the next day.
Right, yeah, everything is right with the world.
Dude, you're good. And so he goes up, goes to bed, wakes up in the morning, first thing after. Frank, did the Yankees win? I'm like, dude, what do you think? They were up 5-0, went to sleep. He goes, yes. I'm like, dude, they blew it. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah. He's like, dude doesn't miss a beat. And he says, basically along the lines of, that's your fault. I should have been downstairs watching it.
Isn't that funny? I know so many people that are like, if I don't watch. It's like the way you exercise control, right?
Yeah,
over something that's uncontrollable.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Yeah. And I think at this point in my life, and I don't know if it's age, I mean, at 41 years old, and baseball to me is, I love it. It's a game. It's it's become a really interesting hobby, working with some of the athletes, which has been a really neat experience. So watching it from that vantage point, I probably lost out on financial opportunity when the Yankees lost that. Significant. I mean, you work with a few guys who are World Series champions. That's something, forever, that they'll always be signing those autographs and doing appearances based on that win. So, and Jill and I have been talking about it, and it was like, the amount of money that, again, it's not about all the money, but there were a lot of business opportunities that I lost personally when they lost. And I wasn't throwing stuff around. Dude, it happens, man. You got beat, and we can talk about loss. We can go right into that.
Well, we can talk. I mean, that's a good segue, right? Because I met you. So let's see. When did I meet you? I met you back when Tom MacArthur was the congressman for the district that I live in, which is Morristown in southern New Jersey. So CD, Congressional District 3. And I think that's the first time I met you because you were working for Tom.
Yep.
Bobby, my wife, ended up working for Tom for a little bit.
Yep.
And so she got to know you, and then I would go to some events for Tom, and you were just around, and you had long hair. Yeah. I think your beard was bigger back then.
It was darker.
It was dark. Well, I didn't have this.
It was gained a little gray.
I didn't have this gray in the temples.
Yes.
But whatever. I still got all my hair. Really.
Dude, that's it. Look, man. Over 30, you got all your hair. That's a win.
Yeah. You're not doing the whole growing it down here because you can't grow it up here. No, you just. And so I met you then, and right away, man, you're an extraordinary guy, Frank.
I appreciate that.
No, you are.
It feels weird though. But
whatever.
I crossed my arms to get uncomfortable. So
okay, well, that's fine. It's not like we're on camera.
It's not like 3 cameras.
It's not like there's 3 cameras.
No, I appreciate that.
Because so many people in that business. I mean, so many people in the business of politics. It's a rough business, right? It's really rough. It can beat you down. You can get cynical really, really quickly. I mean, at the time, I didn't know that. And then when I ran, I learned a lot of this. Like, it can beat you down super quick, and you get cynical super quick. And out of everybody in that room that I met the first time I met you, which I think was at an event at my mother's house.
I think so. Yep.
Everybody in the room that I met, like, you were just this like totally positive, upbeat guy. And everybody else you meet is like, hey, what's up? It's the standard line. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then they'll tell you like what's wrong in their life, right? And I remember meeting you and being like, oh, hey, I'm Bob. Oh, hey, I'm Frank, man. Like, hey, how's it going? It's great. It's going great. I'm like, and that I always remember. That's my first memory of you. And so, I mean, like, cause you, and for you, and now that I know you better, for you to be that upbeat after the literal beatings that you took working in politics at that time, because Burlington County's like, well, back then, the district, Burlington County was sort of like a swing county. The district was sort of this swing district. So you win, you lose, Republicans win, Democrats win, whatever. And so, but there was like a lot of loss before Tom won.
Sure.
I mean, and how old were you when you got into doing that?
I mean, it's weird because my parents were not political. My dad was a roofer who ended up working at the Joint Base. My mother was a hairdresser. They met on the Seaside Heights Boardwalk. I mean, it's a bad Bon Jovi song.
It's like one song removed from Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah. It's like a deep cut on one of their albums. I mean, so you had all that, and grew up pretty modestly, and never knew it. Sure, whatever. I mean, and my baseball coach in high school was running for office and involved in politics, and I kind of like gravitated towards that a little bit and did like some college Republican stuff, and then I was working for the DOD after college.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. I worked up at Fort Monmouth for a while.
Back when that was a Serene.
Yes, back when that was a thing.
Because it's gonna be like a Netflix studio.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. They're in the process of turning that whole thing over.
Yeah, they bracked that, and now it's a Netflix studio.
It's a gigantic project, and the financial boom to that area is. It's going to be...
Well, yeah, because you're going to have people who, forget the direct jobs. You're going to have people who are going to want to move in. They're going to want to buy housing. They're going to want to, and then all the indirect stuff that pops up, pizza parlors, like all the stuff that, because there's just more people around. Yeah, that's a sweet thing.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's cool to see, and even in my day job now, like I see a little bit of that developing, happening, and it's really interesting to watch that. But yeah, I got a call one day. It was like a friend, Amanda, now at the Palma. I know you've crossed paths with.
I know, man.
She called me up and she said, hey, you want to go work for the state senator in Deep South Jersey?
Oh, okay.
It's a pay cut. We don't know where you're going to be living, and then you start in like a week.
This is like very, for people that aren't into this stuff, like this is very status quo, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I got a job. Take a pay cut. I don't know where you're going to live. I need you to start in 48 hours, but it could be interesting.
Yeah, right? It could be cool. And if the guy wins, like, who knows, right? Like, and that's how many people, when you ran, it's like, hey, if this guy wins, like, sure, you're going to have some cool opportunity, DC thing. I was at a point in my life, I think, with the Department of Defense job that I was looking around. I'm like, looking at all these cubicles, and I'm like, punching a clock. I'm doing a job that wasn't exactly like exciting, but it paid okay. And, same thing, like, hey man, I got this job, it's a government job. I'll look now and I'll laugh about how much money I'll be making now, like this late in the game, but whatever. But I just looked around, I'm like, dude, this is the dumbest thing ever, but I'm gonna go take that job. And I remember like the freedom of telling my boss that, like, I'm like, hey man, like next Thursday is my last day or whatever the hell I went in and says, like, what do you mean? I said, no, I'm done, I'm out. He's like, you're quitting? I mean, I'm not, and I don't remember. I guess, like, if that's what you want to call it, like, I guess, sure. He's like, well, what happened? I'm like, it's got a different job offer. He's like, well, we can talk about compensation. I said, nope, I can't look at a cubicle for the next 4 years. And that was I'm happy I did it. We ended up losing that campaign. lived at an old horse farm in Buna.
That's deep South Jersey.
Yeah, we were deep South. Run around Vineland to Summers Point all the time, down to Cape May County. And, it was a wild experience. I was a young guy. I didn't know really much about the industry. Thought I knew everything, when I got there day one.
Well, that's how it is. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what's that saying? The older I get, the more I realize the saying is the older I get, the smarter my parents seem to get. It's amazing.
Bro, yeah. And, I don't know, Jesse Itcham?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesse talks about that a lot, like his parents and their importance in his life, and, how limited time you have with your parents left at this age,
Well, yeah. What's that statistic? I think a buddy of mine, Justin Riley, was talking about it, who was on this podcast. It was, you get 18 years. Now, he was talking about it from the vantage point of being a father, but it works the same way from being, a child with your parents. You basically get statistically 18 years with your parents, and then you get one more year. Because if you move out at 18, the amount of times you see them between 18 and whenever they pass away, on an average, it's 19 years total. Because you're going to see them, you're going to spend one more year of time with them between holidays, birthdays, coming home. Like,
makes sense.
Yeah. So he loses, and then you
got another job in politics. That's what you do, right?
Yeah, right. You just jump on the next campaign.
Jump on the next campaign. It's like you're traveling on a train. It's like, this train's out. Get on the next one, and hope the next one makes it a little further.
Yeah, I feel like the people that work in these campaigns, because I ran as a candidate, but I had, it's a team.
Sure.
Any person that gets up there and runs for public office, particularly any kind of high office, federal or, state senator, who says, I got here on my own or bootstrap this, is just lying to you. Like, they're lying. There's so many people, even if it's not people you're paying, just volunteers. I remember running and having, I remember this really well. I had these two women who were making phone calls in the Burlington County office. And so this is 2020. So Ukraine had just happened, right? So the two high scorers, I think it was in the Burlington County office, or two of the high, they had this whiteboard, and they would have who made the most phone calls every week. And we would try to just keep it a competition. Anything you can do to keep people, pumped up, and so people got really competitive with who could make how many calls every week. Two of the top scorers, one was a Russian woman, like a Russian immigrant, and the other was a Ukraine immigrant. And they're in the same office, and they were not crazy about each other. Like, they didn't hate each other, but you could just tell they sit on opposite sides. I'm sure it's difficult. You got family, regardless of what they think about what's going on, just the fact that maybe you've got family that's involved. So they would sit at opposite ends. And anytime I would come in, the first thing they would want to do is drag me aside and be like, okay, so when you get elected, here's what you need to do about this. Let me tell you, I have family there. And yet, regardless of how they felt about each other, right? They were volunteering. I didn't pay them. They were probably in their 60s. They both had grandkids. They both had kids. And they're there till like 11 o'clock at night making phone calls. It's wild. So I always feel like the people that get into this business who aren't volunteers, who are getting paid, it's a little bit like traveling gypsies. Like, you go from one job to the next job to the next job, and you're sort of gambling a little bit. Every job, you're like putting down what you have to give, which is often your time, and the not taking a job that actually can pay you really well, to like gamble on maybe this person is the next, take your pick. If you want to pick from either side of the aisle, maybe this person's the next person that blows up. It's the next Dan Crenshaw. It's the next AOC. It's the next this. It's the next that. And I get to be a part of that, And so, I have a lot of respect for a lot of the people that I work with, because they could have been doing other stuff and getting paid better, and being more stable and, all that stuff.
I think you do it for the passion, and that's, I think you talked a little bit about the volunteers that you interacted with, and that's kind of how I felt when I got the call to go work for Chris Christie in 2009.
Okay.
And, that was a guy who, at the time, had a lot of buzz. I mean, they thought he could certainly be competitive in that governor's race. I don't think many people thought he would win immediately. I think as the summer went on and, started getting a little cooler out, people were thinking, all right, this guy has a shot to win this thing.
So this was his first. This is
2009. Yeah. So I was working for the county party in Ocean, and I got a call to go work for Chris Christie up in Bergen, Essex, Hudson, and Passaic counties. Which, you take a beach guy from Ocean County and throw him in those 4 counties. That was a wild experience just in itself.
Well, yeah. If you're not from Jersey, like if you're listening to this and you're not from Jersey, like North Jersey and South Jersey are different countries.
Planets, yeah.
I mean, different planets. Yeah. Politically, but just in general. And listen, I love North Jersey. It's not like a aggro thing. It's not for me. I be some people, right? But like, they're just different planets. And particularly if you're in politics, if you get sent up to North Jersey from South Jersey, like, I got a lot of good friends up there who are kind enough to like take me in and tell everybody I'm not a horrible human being. But like, if you just get thrown in there cold, it's a deep ocean, man.
And it was. And, I think it was just like, I moved into Morristown. Our main office was near there. And my cousin lived in Morristown. Mm-hmm. And it was him and 2 or 3 other guys in his house, within walking distance of all the bars downtown. And I turned their, like, foyer into a bedroom.
Okay.
Which would come in handy later in life when I found myself in a 1985 Volkswagen van again.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. I can't. We'll get to that because I got a lot of questions, Frank. Yeah, because that's when you went off the radar with me. There's a lot of.
I don't have an answer all, but I will tell you this: that foyer setup was interesting because it was one of those things like you're working 16, 17-hour days, from the campaign trail, and I'm driving all over Bergen County and trying to set up town hall meetings and the Primus Elks or wherever, and so you go through all that, and it's like wow. And then that was one where you won. The guy Chris Christie won that race. It was just a bunch of kids in backrooms baseball hats in the campaign headquarters. It's like holy cow, this guy won.
Yeah. So Christie wins, right? So like, but you ended up back in Burlington, right?
After Christie won,
right.
I was in the governor's office for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And then went down to go help John Runyon.
Oh, right. That's right.
Of that campaign.
Yeah.
In Ocean, Burlington counties. Yeah.
John was really the first congressman I got to know really well. I knew Jim Saxton before him. And I actually knew the guy who won after Saxton got out, which is a guy named John Adler, who, tragically passed away very young of a heart attack, he was always a nice guy to me. And he was a Democrat. And then Runyon, who was a tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles, won. And I know from I remember this story. The guy was a mountain, man. He's a freaking NFL tackle. And I remember the story from the guy who was running his campaign, a good friend of ours, Chris Russell, who worked on my campaign, ran my campaign. I remember him telling me that when John decided to run, he was playing for Minnesota, right? He left the Eagles and he was doing like one season.
I don't know, maybe, yeah.
It might have been Minnesota, somewhere outside of Philly. And so he was like deciding to run. And in between all the things he had to do in football, he would like be on the phone with Chris, like basically learning how the federal government worked better than he kind of did. We all grow up here, you have some idea, but if you're going to go be a congressman, you got to know your stuff. And John was always interesting to me because if you meet him, he's like he's the opposite of what you would think of politicians. Yeah. He's this big, quiet guy. But then he would open his mouth and he just was like, he just made a lot. I remember when he chose to speak, it always seemed to matter.
It matters, yeah. I like Ronnie. I was a Giants fan growing up, so even for me, like going to work to help out this guy who was on the Eagles, and like I remember like his approach to that was very professional. He was like, look, man, I worked for the NFL in the Philadelphia office, right? And that was like very like, you could tell, like, he was an even keel leader. Like, I remember there was somebody kind of, like, running around a little bit, like, frantically, and I remember he like, kind of said to the guy, like, dude, like, you're running around, you're not moving the needle. And I could picture that type of leadership, number one, not playing well in DC, right? Because, everyone down there thinks that everything they do moves the needle, tremendous amount, and not much of it does. But I was like, man, that's a leader. Like, John Runyon to me was a leader. Like, I still to this day, like, I very once in a while, like, hit him up, I'll text him or comment on social media or something. But that's a dude I have just so much respect for. He made mistakes earlier in his life that he owned well before the campaign. And yeah, he was a star, man. Just a stud guy.
When I decided to run, he went out to breakfast with me. He couldn't have been just more kind about it. And he was really. I mean, he only did 2 terms. Yep. So did you work in his office when he won?
No.
Yeah.
No. I went back to the governor's office, and then it was like, I think 2013, kind of parted ways there. And that's where, like, so much of life started happening, because I was probably, 28, 29, working for a guy who at that point was likely going to win another term in office. The Hurricane Sandy had hit not too long, kind of around then. And I just remember, like, going in 2013, like, all right, cool, like, Chris Christie's going to win re-election. Who knows, maybe runs for president. Like, there was a lot going on with that. And, parted ways there. And then it was kind of like, all right, shoot, like, my identity and my career path has been this. And right now it's not. And I remember the feeling I was, weird about, because it's like, what do you do? And what's the next thing? I had a buddy who was going to work, going to do a job interview at a bar and convention hall in Asbury Park.
Which one?
It was called, I don't know if it was Beach Bar, but
okay.
And then there was
I thought it might be like Asbury Lanes or something.
No, I wish.
One of those places I played.
Yeah, I miss the lanes. It's there now, but it's not the lanes that you played at.
No. I mean, Asbury. I talked about this, I think, with Chiva once with my friend Glenn. Asbury Park, when I was touring, was where all of the white power skinheads and punks lived. So, like, back then, it was like there in Lancaster, were like the 2 places that, like, if you're going to go play there, like, you need to be very careful.
Yeah, it's going to be a thing.
It's a thing. You're going to show up. You're going to have to deal with it. And so I remember coming back to Asbury post-Sandy. Mm-hmm. This was maybe like 2016. Yeah. Yes, probably 2017. A friend of mine needed a ride down there. And so I drove him down to this thing he was going to, thinking, all right, like, isn't it funny what the mind does? Like, so I'm touring in like 2006. So like 10 years later. So I'm 23, now I'm 33, 34. I'm an adult, I have a job, got a wife. And still, my mind slips right back into, all right, I'm going to Asbury, like, start looking for all the white power people let's look for the Nazis so I can, like get in a fight. Like, I hadn't thrown a punch in anger in probably 8 years at that point. And I'm like, all right,
it's some crap.
And then I go down there and I'm like, there's a Fruitables and like the whole place changed, which is what time does. It's just in my mind, I froze into what it was.
Yeah, and Asbury Park, just historically was a pretty rough area. I didn't see much of like the far-right nationalist types around, I guess, when I was kind of growing up. I mean, I know they're around, and they're around everywhere.
Sure.
And it's just bad guys out there doing bad things for bad reasons.
Yeah.
And whatever. I mean, they're just don't always have time talking about
who
they are. And,
I mean, I was just more talking about...
Yeah, they're there.
They're there. And
you knew it was going to be trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were doing a job, so you went and worked in a bar in Asbury.
Yeah. But I remember very distinctly, like, my boy was like, my buddy Teeds, who let me live with him during Hurricane Sandy, because my place got, took a little water. It took a few months to get it back going. And my buddy Teeds is like, dude, like, why don't you just come here? It's a summer job. You ain't doing anything else right now. Like, those honest things that, like, you need a guy in your life to be like, bro, we need to kind of get off the couch and like figure something out. Whenever I went there, I was wearing like a button-down shirt, jeans. I'm like, well, whatever, dude. And I did like an interview, and they're like, you're like way overqualified
for this job.
But sure, do you want to do security? I'm like, yep, sign me up. You know, and dude, I remember I was just like, what? Dude, that turned into like one of the best 6 month to a year periods of my life, because I was back around normal people. The whole political thing, as you know, can become very inflated and like not cool, and like just
it becomes insular.
You're away from normal people as much as you might not want to think you are. You are.
Yeah, and it's kind of the paradox of doing it, because if you're working in it, you're around people who every single little move on local or state level like is news, because that's, I always felt, I mean, I don't, you did it longer than I did, but I always felt that the things that you traded on were information and favors.
Sure.
Right? So if I know something you don't know, I can share that with you, and maybe I get a favor to be named later or whatever, because I tipped you off on something. And it's not nefarious. It's just sort of the way it happens. And that can get you can get very wrapped up in that. You get very wrapped up in what did this person say. You get super wrapped up in what other people think about me. You know, like what's everybody saying about me?
What you hear,
yeah. You know, and what's the paradox about it is, whoever you're working for, the candidate, whatever, the person in elected office, all that person is trying to do is convince everybody they're a normal human being. Right? It's like paradoxical. It's ironic.
Approachable and relatable. And,
yeah,
I know, man. So whatever. Dude, Wentworth on the boardwalk, and like, I never had less money in my life, you know, as an adult, and I was never happy. And you know, I remember there was a time I was like washing dishes there, and I'm like, man, I'm wearing an apron washing dishes, and like I jokingly said to my buddy Teeds, like, yo, man, take a picture of this, because one day I want to look back on that and chuckle. And you know, it's wild. You know, 2 years ago, a year and a half, whatever it was, as I kind of got into the sports stuff, I hosted an event. I booked and hosted an event with the manager of the New York Yankees, Aaron Boone, at that same venue.
Really?
So, you know, years later, after like one of the low points in my life professionally, I walked into, I'll never forget seeing Aaron Boone, Brandon Steiner, who, you know, does a lot of his appearances and stuff, who I do a lot of work with too, walks in convention hall. You know, they call out, hey, we're out front. I'm like, all right, cool, we'll get you a parking spot. Similar to politics, right? Like, you could pull up somewhere, God forbid you use a parking spot that isn't like a parking spot.
Yeah, God forbid it's not choreographed.
Yeah. And like, bro, I'm walking through convention hall with the manager in New York Yankees, and I'm like, in my mind, I remember, because the restaurant is on the left, and I was walking back into like the dressing room because they were a little bit early. We wanted to eat something. And I'm like, walking by, and I thought about it, like, man, how many times I took the garbage out in that parking lot when I was a bar back or whatever it was, and now I'm like walking through this place with the manager of the New York Yankees, and hours later, you know, there's 350 people in convention hall at an event that like I helped put together and booked, and like, that was crazy, dude. Like, that was like, just shows you, man, like Phoenix from the ashes kind of stuff. Like,
well, you never know. Yep. You never know. And so your happiest time was when you were washing dishes in an apron in the back.
I mean, I wouldn't know that. That period of my life, right. I would say, you know, where I was bar backing, security at a bar, and look, which makes sense, right? 28-year-old young single guy.
Yeah, no responsibilities. I was going to show up and do your job.
Yep. No emails, no texts, no phone calls. You're like, dude, just show up to work, and look out and.
And I mean, you're coming out of something that is 24/7. I mean, politics, if you're working in it, is 24/7.
Yeah.
There is no, I turn my phone off at 6:30. There is no, hey, it's Easter or Christmas, I can't take phone calls. Because if something explodes, like, you know, the world doesn't wait for your schedule.
Or how about this? It's Easter and Christmas, and now you got to spend a few hours sending out Merry Christmas texts and responding to the ones you're getting. Because God forbid you don't, and then it's like Bob Healy didn't respond. I texted him on Christmas, and that SOB didn't. See, look at this guy. He wants me to write him a $300 check. It's like,
yep.
I know.
I mean, yeah, and so I can understand that. I mean, it's almost like a palate cleanser, right?
Oh, dude, 1,000,000%. And that's why when going back to work for Tom MacArthur after that hiatus, you said it, came back with the long hair, beard. It's kind of like, all right, dude, if I'm going to, and I remember meeting with Tom, and I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it who I am, authentically. And I used the line with him when I met him in Barney. And I love Tom, dude. As you know, I mean,
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I can't say enough about that dude, the way he is, who he is as a man, a leader, a person of faith, family guy, just business, the way he operates. I just can't say enough about that guy. And I remember meeting with him and saying, number one, I don't want to do this. I don't. I'll come in, I'll help you with your convention, and I'm moving to the Florida Keys or something. I need a little money. Seem like a good dude. Yeah, I can help you through this process. And I remember saying, but if you want a guy from Waretown, you're getting a guy from Waretown. And that was kind of my calling card at that point. Bro, I'm not shaving. I'm not putting a freaking suit on. I remember I wore a flannel shirt, jeans, and sneakers to his house for a quasi job interview. Dude, this is who I am. If you want a guy in Vineyard Vines with a fresh shave and shoes, I don't even know where the hell they get cool shoes like that. Just go ahead, bro, get him. That guy's out there for it. I'm not it. This is who I am, and this is where I'm going to be. And dude never had more fun in politics that next few years.
Well, it was an interesting few years because Tom won after Runyon decided he wasn't going to run. Yep. And the district's that district at the time had never been a sure thing. No. So it sort of leaned a little more Republican than Democrat. And Tom, and then there was there was always, because it was Ocean County and Burlington County, it was always there was always a primary, right, between, somebody from one county and the other. It's kind of the way it worked. And so I got to meet Tom. I got to meet him right after he won his primary. I met him at the Vincenttown Diner because he asked to sit down with me. And I remember he sat down, and I didn't know a lot about him. I knew he'd been the mayor of Randolph. I knew he had this really successful company that he had sold. He was sort of semi-retired, and he was from Connecticut originally, which honestly didn't sit well with me because, if you're in Jersey, you're a little clannish. So I was like, all right, this guy from Connecticut, he wants to run for Congress. He's going to be, my business is in this district. I live in this district. I grew up in this district, so it matters to me. This matters. And he sat down, and I said, so how's it going? And he pulls his phone out, and he goes, let me play you something. So he had a primary guy named Frank Lonigan. Steve Lonigan, not Frank Lonigan. Steve Lonigan running against him, who you say was a difficult guy. Never struck me as a happy guy, but I don't know him that well. I just know what I've seen.
Difficult probably.
And he played a message from him on his phone. So this is a guy running in a primary against him, which it's you don't do. You don't call the other guy up and berate him on the phone. You run your race, and you duke it out in the public eye in front of the voters, but you don't. And he played me this message that was just, I remember listening to it, not being involved in politics at all the time. And I said to him, is this normal? He goes, well, I don't know if it's normal or not, but I have 8 more just like it on my phone. I was like, Jesus, man. But I remember I had this, because this is what your mind does. I mean, you prejudge, it tends to prejudge everybody. And so my prejudgment of Tom was carpetbagger from Connecticut, been here a few years, has a bunch of money, wants to be a congressman. And when he did that, I was like, oh, normal human being gets annoyed about the same. Because if I had that message on my phone, I don't know Steve Lonigan from Adam, but if anybody had left that message on my phone, in my 20s particularly, I just would have wanted to break their face. And the fact that he just didn't curse the guy out in front of me and just said, yeah, this is what I deal with. I was like, all right, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, he had a measure to him. I Yeah, I mean, Tom was it for me. Just a great dude, and that, you talk about like the vile political stuff, and then it's like, he wins that race. He's focused on all the things the Congressman should be focused on. Deborah, heart and lung, the Hurricane Sandy recovery, like all those things, and like wins the second race he runs by 20 points, whatever it was.
He made you your chief of staff.
I was the district chief of staff for him.
But that's a great story, because you told me you got done the race and then you wanted to get the hell out.
I was thinking of Florida.
Yeah. And then, like, what'd you go? You went to D.C. with it, right?
Yes.
Like his first time in D.C. as
yeah, I think it was like the new member orientation. I think at that point they had already kind of figured out who the D.C. chief was going to be.
That was
Ryan Carter. I love Ryan, dude.
Ryan's great. I went to high school.
You did? Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I went to high school. He's working for
Yeah. He's a crazy killer, dude. I love that guy. Smart man, brilliant guy, hard worker. But yeah, Tom was. I was getting ready, dude. I was like, all right, cool. Like, I came back, I did it. It was kind of like one of those, like, hey, yeah, like. Somebody said something like, you really shouldn't work with Frank. And like, I was saying blackball, but like, I was a question mark at best, at some points in my life, and that was one of them. And, I'd gone through some personal stuff, and it's just a lot, man. There's a lot going on. And Tom, like, takes this chance on this 28, 29-year-old kid and, like, saw something in me that probably a lot of times I hadn't seen in myself. And I remember, we're standing on the street corner in D.C., and he said, look, man, like, why don't you stick around and kind of be my New Jersey guy? And even the way he set up the offices was interesting, because, you had your D.C. office. Generally, you have a D.C. chief of staff that would oversee everything everywhere. And he's like, look, we're going to have D.C. chief of staff. I want you to be my district, not director. I want you to be my district chief of staff. And then you and Ryan are going to be on equal footing in a sense. Now, Ryan saw him more and was way more in tune with like what was going on in D.C., which is important. And, Ryan certainly acted like a chief of staff as he should have, and knew the budget stuff better than I did. And, I just kind of would hone in on what's going on locally and making sure we get a great team in New Jersey, which we did. I mean,
you guys have killed it.
Dude, I still to this day, like that congressional staff, that campaign staff in 2014, like those were some times in my life that I look back on politics, I think so fondly of the people I was around and the stuff we were focused on and doing. Then the Trump stuff happened and Tom lost that third campaign by a point, and that was why you go from winning a district that Barack Obama won twice by 20 points to now losing. Here we go again. Here we go again. I'm in my mind, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, we've built something here. We're on a really good path. People have been talking about Tom running for state office. I think he may have had interest in. I mean, it never really like landed one way or another. So didn't have time to.
Right. But that's what so often with that stuff. I mean, that's what can happen. You get in to do a job, and then people start talking about, well, you'd be really good for governor.
Yes.
You'd be really good in the cabinet position. Or you'd be really good. So, I mean, it's just
he would have been a phenomenal governor.
I think Tom really would be good in anything he decides to do. I mean, I've been really, when he lost that race, I called, because he was really the first person in office that I got to know more than just, okay, I show up to an event, I give you a check, and
how are kids?
How are your kids? And when I'm in trouble or when I have a question, like, you take my phone call, I come to DC, I see you, and we talk, and I don't want to make it sound transactional. Sometimes it is, but in general, I always tried to support people that I liked, and I have a business, so you try to support people who are going to be helpful and protect the people that you're responsible for. Tom was the first guy that I got to know personally. I knew his wife, Debbie. I knew that he had 2 kids that were adopted. I knew that he had a child that passed away earlier, in his life. And I'll never forget one time I went to DC to see him about some bill on fishery stuff. And Jeff Braben, who was his legislative director, was in the office. And we were really concerned because we thought he was going to vote one way that maybe wasn't going to be so helpful to us. So I'm in the office like, Tom, you gotta listen, this is why it's going to be hurtful to us. Like, I'm concerned about the people that we employ. Like, And Tom said to me, he goes, listen, did you come down here to because you think that because we're as close as we are and you've been helpful to me, I'm going to change the way that I vote? And I said, no, that's not. And I meant it. No, I said I came down here to explain to you that we're really concerned. And he said, well, that's fair. And, I'll sit with you all day. I want to hear your concerns. That's my job. But he goes, I just want to be really clear. You being helpful to me doesn't change how I'm going to vote. And I respected him so much more for that. And you know what? To be honest with you, I forgot how I voted on that bill. Because that's not what I remember. That's not what I remember. I remember him saying, look, I can't be bought, can't be sold. I'm me, and I'll listen to you because that's my job. I remember him saying that, I'll listen to you because that's what I'm here for. Dude,
I sat through so many conversations with that guy when he would say the same thing to everyone. Hey man, I appreciate your support, but just know, at the end of the day, I'm making this decision based on the merits and where I see it. And I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to listen to someone who's got that point of view. And he was always like that. He really, dude, just so low drama, high character. And that's when he lost. Again, it's you're approaching what could have been a recount in that race. And I remember, obviously, I wasn't going to make the staff kind of sit through the final week or two, whatever the hell, when we figured out that ballots get counted here, this and that. And I'm like, dude, everyone just hang on. I'll go to the office, I'll make sure that I'm there, and just don't feel the need to sit here. But if there's a party in a week, show up. If nobody needs to go to this funeral except me right now. And I remember talking with him a lot. And it stunk when he lost because to me it was that was a guy who did everything the right way, treated people correctly, focused on policy, not politics. Was just dialed in on different things. I don't know when it became so difficult for Republicans to support tax cuts and the repeal of Obamacare at that time. Those were things that Republicans had run on for years. And Tom, I think, kind of when he got in the mix on the tax cut bill, he made that thing so much better by getting involved in it. Everybody talks about the SALT deduction.
State and local income tax.
We're now getting really in the weeds. So, Tom loses that election and it's just dude, what the heck, man? This guy has done things the right way and he's dialed in and focused and just treated people the right way. But that kind of brought me to a moment in my life where I'm damn it, dude, here we go. Thought the rocket ship was going, we're going to win this election.
Yeah, good people, I like what I'm doing.
Dude, and then you lose.
And comfortable.
And I'm I don't really want to go the DC route, which at that point I probably could have. I could have joined a consulting firm in New Jersey, could have started my own, and that's when it was just dude, I'm going to go. I had that 1985 Volkswagen van.
All right, this is where I lose track of you for a while, so I got a lot of questions.
Yeah. Well, my buddy Captain Mike, who I don't know, I think you've met him over the years, and
I think
you've seen him on Instagram. He was that friend who was kind of dude, he helped me so much through times like that because he'd be bro, I remember I bought the van. He's dude, you just gotta rip the carpet out, and because we were going to refit, I'm I don't really know what I want to do. He's dude, just got to rip the carpet out. He's very much of a start. You got to start, right. And if it's just ripping the carpet out, that's what the hell it is. And we rip the carpet out, and then we take the seats out, and then my buddy's throwing rhino liner down because there's going to be sand and water, and the floor of the van was kind of jacked up. And then he's
wait, you had standing water in your van?
There's a little, there's a little water. That thing was in 1985, and it needed a few grand to get it back on the road and all those things. And I'm next thing I know, I'm looking at this thing. We have it outfitted basically to live out of. If I had, we had a little power box that, I was getting energy from and had a fan in there and a sink, a hand pump sink that you would see on the boat. And yeah, man, he's just like, dude, you gotta go. You don't know when you're going to get this chance again, but you gotta go.
So you end up in what, Key West?
Mostly Florida. So we took the train, the auto train. You ever do that out of Virginia?
No, I don't think I have.
You guys ever been to Florida?
I go down there all the time.
Yeah.
We've got a service facility in West Palm.
So we took the auto train. So you drive to Virginia.
Okay.
Now I'm driving this van.
So this is a train that you put your freaking car on?
Yeah. It's
nuts.
It's so cool. So you drive to Virginia.
I didn't even know this.
It's amazing. It is like, it was one of the coolest trips of my life. So first of all, we don't know how like this van is going to make it. Like, but it did. It made it in Virginia.
I know a few things about vans on the road not making it.
Exactly. Now add 20 years to it and, making it a Volkswagen. Dude, so we get to Virginia and hop on that auto train. It's like a 16-hour trip from that point. You're just sitting on the train. You sleep overnight. Like, you wake up, and next thing you know, they're taking your train off a trailer. They're taking your car out of a trailer in the back, and they pull it around, and you hop in it, and you're in Florida. You're like, not far from Orlando.
Okay.
And we're like, all right, cool. Like, I think Mikey had to get back on a flight that day or the next day or whatever. I had a cousin who lived down in Indiana, which is an hour 20-ish away from Orlando.
Okay.
Kind of used that as a home base. Went there, dude. I was in the gym 2 times a day, on the beach, a lot of the days crashing in my van places, making new friends.
So you were what, like 31?
Yeah, about
31. Yeah.
So it was 20.
So like, how quickly between Tom losing do you take off to Florida?
Weeks. A few weeks.
So it was just like, this is over and I'm out.
Yeah. And it was like, not bad out, but I got a shot here to do something different and cool, and we got a little money saved up, and I was like, you know what, dude, I'll figure out the professional stuff. You've been at a point in your life where it's like, man, is this the right move? Is this the right leap? Is this? And I was like, dude, but what's crazy out of all that, like, I kind of went down there and I had 2 goals coming out of it. One, I wanted to kind of like get something a little bit more firm. Like, I was kind of done with the rat race of day-to-day politics stuff. So professionally, all right, I want to find something a little bit more firm. I don't know if I'm going to end up bartending in the Keys. I have no idea at that point, like, where I want to be. That's when kind of like the thought to join the military was really like pervasive, and like I couldn't like not do that anymore. So I kind of like started down that path, needing an age waiver to get in the Army National Guard, and like all those things. There's a ton of chaos involved in those 2 things, right? Like trying to figure out the job world. And a few friends were like, dude, you should do this, you should do that, you should go do this. And I'm in Florida training, just working out, like focused.
Like, so you were just living out of the van then?
I would say using the van as like an RV. A lot of times I would go, my cousin had like a really nice 3-bedroom house, apartment thing, not far from the beach, right on A1A actually.
Okay.
And like I would go stay there for a week or 2, and then I'd be like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go check out Key West. And I just dip, and I'd be like, I don't know where I'm sleeping, and I would like pull into Key West. Yeah, and it's funny, man, like, and this sounds like weird to some people when I say it, but I would befriend some folks who were unhoused. And I remember there was a guy, Mike, in Key West, who, like, bro, we were just like riding bikes around together. Like, this dude was legitimately like a homeless man, like, and we were just riding. I met him at this spot in Key West. He was really like a neat guy. He was an older guy. Like, I remember he always had like an AC/DC shirt on and like a little ponytail. Like, you tell, man, the party life got the best of him in that town. And, and we went to Wendy's for dinner one night, riding our bikes, and like he's the one who told me, dude, if you can find a spot in Old Town, park the van. Nobody will bother you if you don't bother me. And like, I remember I found a little spot in Old Town in Key West, not far from like a $600 a night hotel. I just slept in the van. And I remember one of the neighbors came out, I was like, hey, I don't know how long you plan on being here, but if you don't make noise and I don't see you urinating outside that van every night, I won't tell a soul, because you're not allowed to like camp there.
Sure.
And I didn't, I just like, yeah.
I mean, and so I mean, you would shoot out to Key West. You'd shoot out just around Florida.
Yep.
Like, and how long were you doing this for?
Probably 6 to 8 months ish.
Yeah, I felt like it was almost a year because I would see you on Instagram occasionally. But
it felt like, I felt like a year.
I mean, it seems like a nice reset.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great reset.
I mean,
but I was doing stuff that I was passionate about, having fun with, like, and, that's where, like, the military stuff was coming in, because all that time, I'm trying to get this age waiver to go in the Army National Guard.
Oh, so you spent that whole time, like, basically working on an age waiver.
I mean, that's a loose term, right? Because you didn't have to work much for the age waiver. I had to, like, submit some letters and wait. And the same thing, I'm interviewing for different jobs, and I remember I literally did an interview wearing a polo shirt in that van, like a video interview.
This is before COVID. You were like doing COVID before COVID,
bro. I wish I didn't have the
like what's it called? Like board shorts and bunny slippers, but business from the waist up.
And I remember like the job interview, and the guy called me up like later, and he's like, "Dude, that's not the right fit for you or us right now, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do know." Like, yes, thank you. Thank you for eliminating any possibility right now. But yeah, I'm interviewing for jobs. I'm trying to figure out what's next.
You're lifting like 2 days a week, twice a day.
Yeah, but I was doing like there was like a high intensity gym I was going to in the morning, and then I was running after that, and then I do that for an hour, then go for like a 2-mile run, and then hang out on the beach, eat. And
I mean, like, look, you're a fit dude. I mean, anybody who hangs out with you knows that. But like, I remember when you told me we were driving to that one event. This was probably a year ago or maybe less. We were in the car, and you were telling me you ended up getting fit because of some girl you knew.
Yeah, years and years.
No, this is a good story, and like the power of FU. Like the power.
Yeah. I mean, there was a girl. It's kind of like you had like that 20s, mid-20s. Like,
on.
Well, yeah. Whatever. That relationship. We get to, we'll talk about that another day, but it was like, you're in your 20s, spend a little time in a bar, eating the food that comes along with that, get a little soft around the edges.
Sure.
And I remember I like kind of training, trying to get back in a little bit of shape. I'm like probably having like 2 sodas a day for breakfast and like trying to figure out life, at the mid-20s. And she said, "What are you doing? It's not like you're going to have a 6-pack or anything." Watch.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. Well, we all had those comments, man, and she probably said it out of love, motivation.
I mean, when you're in your 20s, you don't phrase things maybe as well as you should have.
So, I mean, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, I've stayed in shape, and but that whole thing in Florida was like a really good reset. It was a reminder that I go to often, like, hey, man, do the stuff that was fun to you as a kid. Ride your bike around, go to the beach, work out, be active,
make friends with strangers.
Like, and you don't say it in a weird way, but like when you're a kid, you could be at the beach with your family, and you can meet another kid, and you'll literally play and hang out and talk about things for 3 hours, and like that kid's gone.
My daughter does it all the time. My daughter makes friends with anybody she meets. She's 3 years old. She'll run up, she'll hold their hand, she'll talk to them, they'll play, and then when they're done, they're done. Meanwhile, my wife yesterday is like, "Do you want to go get dinner with, I don't know, these people that I know?" And my first reaction is, I don't want any more freaking friends in my life. What a horrible, this is how, and they say, I've read, right, that one of the things that keeps you young, like reduces aging, heart health, all that stuff, is the quality of your relationships as you get older. And as you get older, people die, people fall off, people move away, you get out of touch with people. And now I'm 41, just kind of staring down the barrel of 42. I'm actually, I don't know what it was, probably like 6 months ago, I took stock of like, how many relationships do I actually have? I was actually pretty happy because I've got more now than in my 20s, more real ones. I was touring. It's like being in the political scene, right? You got a million relationships, but how many meaningful ones?
It's a very, very skin deep.
Yeah, they're superficial. And so I think about that a lot because my knee-jerk reaction is to say, like, I don't want to make any more friends. I mean, when I ran for office, Bobby, so my wife, I mean, she had a lot of concerns. And when I talked about running, she was like, look, like, we were about to have our first kid. I remember talking to you about my freaking, my book in the hospital while my wife was delivering. I remember you and I being on the phone and being like, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. But anyway, I remember when we got done, she said to me, this was one of the best things you ever decided to do. And I lost. And I thought, we're looking at her like, are you freaking kidding me? I took a year of my life away from you, away from our kid, every single night, away from the business. I mean, I still worked, but, You ain't doing it the way you should. No, I mean, I was really lucky to have a really great team that kept everything afloat, and I said, I don't get it. She said, you were on your way to being not a personable person. She said, I could see it.
You kind of shut down.
And she said, this forced you to learn how to smile, to learn how to talk to people again, to learn how to make friends. And, I'll say, I made some really good friends coming out of that. Like people I still keep up with. There's some people I less keep up with. I think I only met one person that I really thought was super evil, like just totally damaged. And so, I mean, there's a positive spin on that stuff, but I'm really grateful for that opportunity because, back to it, like, I am one of those people that, but for something like that, I'd have like 2 friends and I don't know if I'd be fine with it. I'd be fine with it, but it probably wouldn't be good for me. Yeah. Right? Like I got to you and I got a better, I got a better relationship with you when I did that. Like I got to know you better because I would call you and complain about.
Yeah, but that's what you need, man. Like, and it's, whether it's, no matter what it is, like if you're going through something and someone who's going through it and, you reach out to them and go, hey man, like what's your take on this thing? And you trust people and,
I think that's the take, or that's the sign of somebody who's a friend, right? Like you can call them after, because I probably hadn't talked to you in 2 years.
It's been a while. Sure.
And I called you out of the blue, like, hey, I have this problem. I know you know something about it. Like, and it wasn't like, oh yeah, man, it's really good to hear from you. It's been a while. I was like, okay, man, here's what you're going to do. Here's what I think you should do. Like you and I just picked up like right where we sort of left off. And so often, I don't know, maybe it's just because you and I were both in politics for a little bit. So often you call people and the first response will be, where you been? You know what I mean? What have you done? In some manner.
I haven't seen yet. The beef.
Beef and beer, yeah. Like, what have you done in some way? It's usually in a velvet glove, but like, what have you done for me lately before I'm going to be helpful to you?
Or why don't you come to my fundraiser and we talk about it? Yeah,
that's always a good one. Hey, I'm having this event in like a month. Why don't you come down there?
We'll lay it out.
We'll lay it out. I'll walk it through with you. You're like, all right, dude. So you want me to write a check, go sit down with you, and then you're going to have 30 or 50 people around. So, okay, I see what's going on here.
No. Well, man, look, obviously we're friends and I think the world of you, but I feel like that world is, it is so peculiar in a lot of ways.
For sure.
And it's actually not dissimilar from sports, that now that I'm kind of seeing the inner workings of like the professional sports world, like, bro, it ain't that dissimilar. I mean, it really, there are a lot of parallels, a lot of stuff that I did in politics and translated to the sports world. But, it's so funny, man. I talked to a guy last night about an event coming up. And he said kind of what you said just now. And that's something I try to do. So that's why I want to highlight it because, like, first of all, again, I value you as a person. So obviously, if you pick up the phone and be like, yeah, we got it. But, like, this guy said to me, he's like, you don't really even know me that well. And, like, you're really listening to me and trying to help me right now. And it wasn't like I was making $1 million on what we're talking about, and that's what I say to him. I'm like, look, dude, like, two things. One, like, that's the right thing to do in my mind, and this goes into a lot of parts of my life. Like, when you help someone, it helps you.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've learned as I've gotten older and hit some really rough patches. And, you know, I had this one guy say to me one time, we're kind of talking about childhood trauma and crazy stuff. And he's like, dude, you went through all that stuff because one day you're going to help somebody else go through something similar.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what? Like, that was to me like such a wildly profound thing where I was able to say, like, wow, some of the stuff I went through makes a ton of sense now. Because if I can turn that into helping somebody, like, what a freaking gem that is.
Well, there's this concept. I remember somebody once told me this story that, and I don't know if it's true or not. I can look it up online. Somebody can fact check me later. That Albert Einstein used to ask people when he met them, one of the first questions he would ask them is, do you think the universe is working for you or against you? And so he asked somebody really smart. I want to say it was Oppenheimer, but maybe it was somebody else. Somebody who was very smart. Some very smart scientist. Einstein asked him that, and the scientist went, why does that even matter? And Einstein said, because the way you answer that question tells me everything I need to know about your outlook on life. And it's so true. Like, what is looking at being able, and sometimes it happens when you get older, sometimes it happens, some people have it when they're young, but being able to look at some of those really tough spots in your life and think, okay, what is this trying to teach me? Like, how is this working for me? Where's the benefit I get out of this? Rather than, I mean, going back to when we first met, that's sort of what I always saw in you. It's like you were a guy who always was able to see some sort of silver lining, you know, in anything. At least that's what it seemed like to me. You know, just you were always up. If there was 20 bad things to look at in a room and one good thing, you'd be the guy that'd be like, "How you doing? That one good thing over there, man. Let me tell you about that." Like,
yeah, and that, you know, that's funny because we started off talking about like the sports stuff. You know, the Yankees losing the World Series, and like even that, like, what a blessing that I was able to go to a game. Like,
sure,
you know what I mean? At 41 years old, like I remember watching as a kid, like, and I'm not saying I grew up poor, I'm not saying I grew up rich, but like, you know, that's type of stuff to me at that point in my life when the Yankees were like in the World Series a lot in the 90s as a teenager. Like, going to the World Series wasn't really, at least it wasn't reachable to me. Mm-hmm. Like, going to a World Series game wasn't reachable. It was like one of those things like, oh wow, like, that's for them. Right. And like at 41, I'm walking in Yankee Stadium with some friends, and like, by the way, I now like know, like I have cell phone numbers for and text with on occasion the manager of the New York Yankees, who's a big emoji guy, by the way. Oswaldo Cabrera, Jose Trevino, like different players on the team, like that. I was with Aaron Judge for 3 hours helping him at one of his events, like. And I'm like walking into this World Series game, like, could you imagine what like 13-year-old Frank in 1996 would say to 41-year-old Frank? Like, bro, you're going to a World Series game. And oh, by the way, like, you know some of these guys that have done work with them? Like, that's insane. Like, that's an insane. So, like, yeah, like the Yankees lost the World Series. Sucks. I'm proud I lost like quite a bit of professional opportunity out of that. But, like, dude, I have to go to a game. Like, every week I try to volunteer with this mobile food pantry. Like, I see people who are in line in a parking lot of a motel with no shoes on. Some women and children, elderly. Like, grateful that we're giving them apples that you or I would look at in a store and walk right by because they don't look good.
Well, I mean, that's perspective.
Yeah, try to be. You know, I try to have that.
That's important. I mean, because people.
Sorry, I'm just stressed.
No, get up.
I got the jeans going. Keep that in, Sherry.
Whatever.
You gotta keep that in.
We don't like edit this very much. I mean, unless there's some massive thing.
You know, I think we're fun around.
But like, that's perspective, right? If you don't have perspective, I think you can become a very depressed, very sort of angry person. And oftentimes that means trying to just remember where, like, it's as simple as trying to remember where you came from, right? Like, my father used to tell me the only way you can understand just how far you come is by looking back at where you were. And that's why, you know, That's why I like when I meet people who I actually genuinely did know somebody who got no regrets tattooed on their forearm back in the punk scene. Yep. And even at like 21, when they did that, I thought, I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe that's not such a good... I mean, you're only in your 20s. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of road left here. Like, we're making a statement. Maybe get that with like a date, like an asterisk and a date mark somewhere there. Maybe then, because when I've met people who are like, yeah, I don't have any regrets in life. I certainly do. And I'm on some level a little grateful for them because it helps me have some perspective on where I'm at now. My buddy Justin Riley, who we just did this podcast with, he was talking this about, like, he went through some tough times like everybody does in their life. And he has this really novel approach to it where he said, I'm really grateful for all of that because it helps me see the good. It helps me understand when things are really, I'm paraphrasing, but when things are really good, like now I have perspective. I get to appreciate so much more in my life because, I have that to look back on and to think, okay, well, I'm not there.
Yeah, I ain't perfect with that, man. Especially like,
nobody is.
It's like, yeah, it's. But that's why I think, to me, trying to do this volunteer stuff and like that keeps me so like humbled and focused and like, bro, I can't tell you how many times I'll like wake up and I usually just go for an hour, like lunch break in the middle of the day, and we just go deliver food to area hotels with the Jersey Shore Dream Center, which I cannot say enough about.
Well, like, so, I mean, we're skipping a little bit, and we don't have to go in chronological order because I want to talk to you about, you saw wild stuff while you were in the National Guard. But like, so you're doing stuff with homeless, what's the proper term? Because
now I think they're referred more to as like unhoused.
Sure. So you're doing stuff with
I think homeless is still also accepted.
Okay. Well, I mean, no.
Anybody that's ever been homeless, I can tell you. Like, it's fun to ask one of the guys that's.
What do you prefer to be called?
I
can see you doing.
Yeah, I was like, dude, let me ask you this question. Like, some people are saying like it's not nice to say use the word homeless. Like, I know people like unhoused, like people without home. And this dude looks at me, and he was a very colorful individual.
Sure.
And he just looked at me and he said, "Mother effer, homeless." And I'm like,
you can curse on this.
I've been there. And I'm like, all right, cool, dude. Like, I got you. Like, that was that guy who, like, dude, I'm homeless. But anyway, yes. So, but I tend to use the term unhoused just out of respect. If God forbid I do, offend someone.
Sure.
So that's.
So how did you end up doing that? Because I sort of saw it on your Instagram, like occasionally.
Yeah.
But it was like this slow burn. I mean, you're like I saw a little bit, and then you.
So I think too, like even like my use of social media with that stuff. Sometimes, like I gotta get better at it, but like I don't put probably as much of the meaningful things that I may be in the middle of on there, which I probably could do better because I think that helps. Like, I can't tell you the times like I'll throw up on my story like, hey, I'm out doing this thing, whatever, and like I'll get someone hit me up literally yesterday. He's like, hey, like I have a bunch of candy for my kids. Can you pick it up and use it for the folks that you see on the food truck? Now, there's an argument that says like, hey, I shouldn't be bringing candy. We should be focused on clean food. Trust me, I know. And it's like, dude, here's the other half. If you don't really necessarily have the funds to go out and buy the food that you need, we're giving you enough nutrition. It might be nice to have a piece of chocolate.
Sure.
So, like, yeah. I mean, like that's the type of stuff that comes out, like when you, but
who's gonna hate?
Yeah, whatever. Over the years, I just been trying to make that like a thing.
How'd you end up getting involved?
Well, I knew I had helped that organization out when I lived in Bradley Beach. I still do live there, but they were doing a soup kitchen at Asbury Park, and I used to go, and I remember I met this kid Kyle, who was a teenager at the time, who was like really involved with like their youth group or whatever. And he was just like a neat guy, like cool kid. Like I saw him around and stuff. Like he was always throwing the football around, and you could tell like he was a leader among the kids. And bro, years later, I'm at this event for my day job at night that we were supporting, and I see this kid Kyle. And we start talking. He's like, oh, I do this food truck now. And like, I literally have a picture of me, Kyle, and a bunch of kids in Asbury Park like playing football when Kyle was like 14. And so I run this little food pantry now. I should come and help out. How many times has somebody said to you, oh, you should come check it out? You're like, see ya. Right. You know, but I was like, dude, actually, cool, I'm in. Like, when? He's like, can you do tomorrow or whatever? So I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. Like, tell me when and where. And dude, I'm so glad I said yes to that, because over the past couple of years, it's been like such a meaningful part of what I get to see. Again, not just perspective-wise, but like helping people out. Like, it's not necessarily about giving them 5 cans of tuna fish and a loaf of bread. Sometimes it's, hey man, how the hell is your day going? Mm. And we had a guy who was an Army vet who tried to help out a little bit, and you know, he's getting some help, but he was living in the woods behind the shop right. We're talking to him, and you know, I forget how it even came up that he was in the military, and like then we bonded on that a little bit, and he said, you know, guys, like, thanks for talking to me. Thanks for talking to me today.
Yeah, I mean, that's food you don't get in the package, right?
That dude,
that's sustenance that you're not getting.
Spends his life in the shadows and in the woods and walking into like a grocery store and people like, you know, trying to scrounge up a few bucks, asking people for money, and like that's a veteran, like a dude who's in the military. And he showed me like he has paperwork, he has DD-214. Like I carry this around because I don't have access to a printer. So like if I need some benefit type stuff, like, you know, he's trying to get VA stuff going, and like he already had his social security card and his DD-214. Period. That's it.
I mean, so you've been doing this for what, 2-3 years now?
Probably, yeah. Not just as a volunteer.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, but I mean, like, so you've heard a lot of these stories. Though. Yeah. I mean, like, is there any common theme, like, to how people end up?
The common theme is it could be me or you. And that is, I've seen that in my own life. And, you know, you make one wrong decision here. And I remember there was one young lady who was very open. And man, I have addiction issues. I've had them for a while. And she was living with a guy in a hotel. And this guy would come out when we were at the food truck, the nicest guy on the planet. Almost too nice. You know, like sometimes you meet someone and you're like, something ain't right. Mm-hmm. Dude, one day that lady like pulled me aside on the other side of the van. The guy hadn't come out yet. And bro, I don't know why she picked me, but you get to know these people. You see them every week. Sure. And she said, can I talk to you real quick? Sure. Everybody kind of looks at me like, it's like over there. I'm like, sure. I'm going to walk around. Man, this woman erupted in tears, like exploded. He's gonna kill me. I don't know what to do. I fear for, like, she was. I could tell that woman genuinely is afraid for her life, and she was stopped. You know, she's like, I can't leave. I have a family, whatever it was, and yeah, there was a series of events that I helped her out a little bit. And she ended up getting away from that guy. I think he ended up getting arrested too, but whatever. I mean, dude, that's a woman who she was a nurse. Got wrapped up a little bit in the wrong party scene. Next thing you know, she's living in a motel on a highway with a guy who is doing unspeakable things to her for money for drugs. And she was very open. And you know, it's like, so that's a common theme to me, is that it could be anybody, you know, and that's a woman who probably thought back and looked back on her life as a nurse and was like, man, I used to be a nurse. Now I'm like living in this motel where like this man is doing these unspeakable things for me for money so we can have drugs. Like,
I mean, yeah, I mean, look, I don't have that kind of experience. I mean, you know, toward you see things, you know.
Yeah, you've traveled to foreign countries where you've helped build, you know, you've seen.
Yeah, I mean,
you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say West Africa,
sure,
which is where I do a lot of work in maternal health. You know, the deck is stacked a little more against you than a place like the United States. I mean, it's, and by that, what I mean is, to your point, in anybody's life, maybe one wrong decision can have some catastrophic consequences. I think there's maybe a little more padding here in the U.S.
Sure.
Like
she's living in a motel.
Right.
In West Africa, they're
out there. Sometimes you make every decision right, and just life doesn't work out for you. But I think back to when we toured, and I think back to, the guys in my band, we all in 30s and our 40s now, and we keep up together, and we text each other, we got a group text, we're close. And oftentimes, when we're talking on the phone or whatever, we'll just say, how the hell did we all come out? Because there's 5 of us, right? And all 5 of us came out of it pretty fine.
Yeah.
Nobody has some addiction issues, or if they did, they've sort of gotten past it. Everybody's got, married. Some of us have kids. We've all got jobs. We're all doing all right. But we know so many people who are just like us who didn't come out so well.
Sure.
And sometimes you reflect, what's so different? What's the difference between that person and me? Why did it work out for me? Why didn't it work out for that person?
Well, I think it comes back to part of outlook, and you said it. Is the universe working for or against you?
Yeah.
If you're somebody, and I've been this person in my life, so I can say it, there were times in my life where I literally would wake up and be like, what do you got for me today? What kind of terrible thing are you going to throw my way today? And then there's times in my life, which has been mostly the past 12 to 13, 14, 15 years or so, whatever it's been, where I'm like, it's a good day for a good day.
Well, that's your byline, man.
Something like that.
Good day for a good day.
Good day for a good day. I don't know what you got.
There are literally stickers down at the shore with your face, and that's it on it.
But and the funny thing about even that is that didn't necessarily come out of a great time. It came out of it stinks right now, but it's a good day for a good day. Find that one freaking thing. Find that one thing in the World Series where it's hey, we spent a bunch of money to come to this game. They lost. It wasn't a particularly exciting game, but by the way, something cool happened. Or
sure.
So it's a good day for a good day. It's if you have that mindset that it's not a good day, guess what?
It's not going to be
a good day. Not.
Yeah.
And that was never more evident to me than when I was at Fort Benning for 6 months for infantry training. But
so that, sort of reversing a little bit. So you were in Florida. You get your papers to go. Why? I never asked you this. Why? Why did you want to go into the National Guard?
Well, a couple things. One, I always wanted to do it since 9/11.
Yeah.
So 9/11 happens. My cousin Jay was in the Air Force.
Election Day
Jay. He was one of my heroes in life, by the way. I love Jay.
He's part of that crew, man.
Yeah, he's a good crew. Jay. And he was in the Air Force at the time. His mom had health issues, and he was deploying, and it was just a lot. It was a lot on the family after 9/11. I was kind of wanting to join after 9/11, and I never did. And I was always that guy who was I wish I. It was there were 2 or 3 things in my life that were eating at me that I really couldn't turn the clock back on. I wish I played high school football. Why? That was, you know what I mean? That's just what I don't even particularly love football today, but I really think I could have been a decent high school football. That's it. I don't think I would have gone to college for free, but I could have been an okay high school football.
You and I are not exactly putting up, over the 6 foot mark.
No, hell no, dude.
You would have been a running back.
I would have been a running back or a little fast guy.
Yeah,
just catch 3 balls a game, even if it was the last game of the season. That was one of them. Joining the military was another. And I wrote a lot about this when I was writing stuff a lot when I was in Florida in the van.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 things were that, the football, wanting to join the military, and I wish I had gone to professional umpire school.
All right, this one I didn't know about.
Yeah, so when I was in high school and college, I was a baseball umpire, and they were just for fun, And there was a school you could go to be a professional baseball umpire. There's 2 schools. I never went because I was in college, and I have this thing, and you're supposed to go to college, and Who knows? Had I gone, maybe I would have been on the field at the World Series.
Maybe.
Umpiring.
I don't know. I think where you're at, the World Series, I think you're in a good spot.
I'm lit. So those were like three things that like I regretted from my teen years and like early 20s. You know, I remember I was at the gym. I called a recruiter, and the guy's like, "Sorry, dude, you're too old." And I'm like,
"So you were how old then?"
36.
Okay.
So I reached out to Ryan Peters, name drop Ryan.
Good dude.
Great dude. And like, you're right. What? I just got told that there's just like no way I can get in the military because I'm too old. So they don't look into it. He's like, I think there's probably an age waiver process, whatever. Like the next day or a couple of days, I get a call from a recruiter who's like, I don't know who the hell you know, but I was told.
Well, I know Ryan Peters, and that
Ryan's a seven member at the time, you know, badass combat arms guy.
Yeah, he's a freaking Navy SEAL.
Yeah. And you know, I get this freaking call from the recruiter. He's like, I don't know who you know, but I was told to get you out of Boston for a bit. So like, can we meet up? I meet this guy, and he's like, what do you want? Why are you doing this? Like, you got everything. By the way, at the time, I was going through the age waiver process and all that. I was still like, in the hunt for a job. Bob, the day I started my new job, which is a very nice paying job.
You work for JCP and you work for the power company.
Yep. Great gig. It's awesome. And that day, I get told by my recruiter, hey man, they accepted your waiver. And Ryan, when he offered to help me, which he did, he said, I'll help you, but if you get in, you're going.
Right.
This isn't like, oh, hey, we tried. Like, yeah. If you get in, you're going. And dude, I'll never forget the gut check period of that. It's like, I got this new job. Like, how do you even have that conversation with your boss, right? Like, I remember I just kept thinking back to, like, how do you privately give your word to somebody like Ryan that was left his family how many times for how many months at a time to go kill bad guys while I'm at the bar on Long Beach Island, like, and like, it was just like one of those times. So it's like, all right, cool, well, let's go. I gotta go. All right, cool. So I think that I got that in like May, and I left in like October. Right. And I went and enlisted infantry for the Army National Guard, which was a 22-week, essentially basic training.
So it's like what, 8-9 weeks boot camp, and then the rest of it's like your MOS.
Yeah, got it. But the way the Army did the infantry stuff, you know, if I was an intelligence guy, like I would go to boot camp for the 8 to 10 weeks, whatever the hell it was. And then you go to like Arizona, and you're in a college dorm setting. Us, we had the privilege of a 22-week program that was essentially 22 weeks of boot camp. Same drill sergeants, same bay, 60 guys, 30 bunk beds, same dudes, which, as you know, like...
familiarity can breed contempt sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember 6 people in a van, and after 6 weeks, just getting home and being like, look, I love all of you, but you are all the last people I want to see right now. Get the hell away from me.
Yeah, dude. So, I mean, that was just, you're giving up a lot of comfort. Sure. You don't have the phone. But again, like, that was a wild experience that...
So important question. Can you impersonate your drill sergeant?
No, I don't know.
I thought, I've got friends I've got plenty of friends that have been in the military, all branches of service. And like almost every one of them was like, yeah, man, you learn how to impersonate your drill sergeant because that's the person who's yelling at you.
It's a good question. Yeah. Probably could. I mean, there were little tics that they had. You could definitely we have one drill sergeant more, bro. He's one of the greatest dudes I've ever There's a few of these drill sergeants there, but those guys, I'll tell you, they're a different breed, man. They're all combat guys for the most part.
My best friend, who was the best man at my wedding, was a DI. And he was in the 82nd Airborne Ranger, 2nd Ranger Battalion. And he tells this great story. He's in Washington as a drill instructor. and the planes hit 9/11. And he's literally, he was in Grenada. That he was like 18. He went to Grenada. He joined the army back in like the late 80s. He went to Grenada, fresh out of jump school. And then, he works his way through the army. He's a CSM. He's a command sergeant major. He's a DI. And he's in Washington State, and 9/11 hits. And he tells this great story where he said, I did 2 things. I was like, so what did you do? What happened? He goes, well, he's like, I'm up. I mean, they were, with the class I had was out doing whatever they were doing. My other drill instructors were taking care of them. So I was eating chow and I'm watching the TV. He goes, and I see the first plane hit. He's like, and, all of a sudden, like, phone goes off, all this. He's like, and while all that's sort of starting to happen, the second plane hits. And he said, I dragged all of my drill instructors back. I dragged the entire class, whatever you call them, lined them up outside. And I just said, how many people here joined for money for college? He's like, 2/3 of that, and raised their hand. And I went, well, you're all going to war. He's like, the second thing I did, he's like, I ran around calling everybody I knew, going to every office on base looking for a job. Because I was not going to sit in Washington when this happened, like Washington State when this happened. So he got transferred and, deployed times. Yeah. But he is one of the finest guys I know. No. And I can see him being a DI, but if he had never told me, I don't think I would have ever
Yeah, I think a lot of those guys, when they take their hats off, that's what they say. Like, we're taking our hat off right now. We're talking like a human. And they kind of, to me, like, they became more like coaches. Yeah. And we were with them pretty much the same group of drill sergeants for 6 months. So, 2 weeks, whatever. But, like, they were like coaches, and they had, I think the one advantage I had was, as an older guy, was that, like, I knew that they were all human. Yeah. And, I think is when you're a young guy and you meet a drill sergeant, or I knew those guys, like, going home with a wife, and or kids, and or, stuff going on with their family, whatever, or they're working 18-hour days, and it's my job to make sure that they don't have to work a 19-hour day. And that was my mentality in dealing with them.
Well, pause there. Like, that's a great mentality. You've got 18-hour days, and my job is to make sure you don't have 19 hours. Right? There's like a service mentality there.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm the opposite of that. Sometimes but that was like my day-to-day there was like, don't get hurt, don't hurt anybody else, and don't make their lives more difficult because they'll make my life more difficult. Right. And that was like the way I try to operate.
And then, so like 22 weeks. So the National Guard, you were like, so then what did you go back to JCP&L after that?
Well, yeah, but remember too, like, when the timing of all that, we came back to a pandemic.
That's right.
So, like, we didn't even really understand at Fort Benning. Like, we honestly, like, there were times when we thought it was a joke with the drill sergeants, where they'd be like, you guys have to stand six feet apart, you have to wear these masks, and like, what? We talk. Imagine that you don't have a phone.
Right, yeah, you have no access to the outside world, and you're like, oh, this is the time. This is what the next 2 weeks are because you're messing with us.
Yeah,
to see
literally. And then we're like going upstairs after our whatever thing, and we're like not wearing masks upstairs, and we're showering. The weirdest thing ever.
I always found that really funny. I would go to because I was flying, I was traveling. I went to Nepal during the pandemic. I was in India and in South America. I traveled all over the place, and I used to always find it really interesting. Apparently, the virus doesn't get me if I'm drinking or eating. Apparently that, I could take my mask off in the airport for that. I need to leave it on for everything else. And look, the first couple of weeks, everybody in my book get a pass, right? Because, you don't know what's going on. You don't, nobody has any idea what is what. But as time went on, even with friends of mine who were super in the other side of the fence of that, it almost became like a joke for a lot of people. Like, yeah, virus doesn't get me when I'm having Starbucks.
Yeah, and it was weird because now imagine a pandemic when you're watching it on the news 24 hours a day, and like your family and your friends. And now imagine a pandemic when you get your phone like once a week for an hour.
Oh, Jesus.
And you're on a military base, and you're like, what is going on? Like,
yeah.
It was crazy. Like,
I forgot that's when you were there.
Yeah, so we come back, and I remember we got dropped off. There was even a question whether or not we were able to leave when our 6 months was, 22 weeks was up.
I told you were here for 22, but it's really going to be 24, 28. You know what? We'll just let you know when you have to leave.
Yep. And they actually, I had the option, I had an offer to go to Ranger School at that point because they were trying to keep, they had some National Guard stuff. I guess there were some travel issues with getting guys in and out. I said no, and that's one thing I regret too. Like talk about like things on the list that you regret. But I had an inguinal hernia at the end of like or the final like couple months of the infantry school, and there was just physically I was beat. Like I was lucky I made it through the final few months of the infantry OSA with that inguinal hernia because that, as you know, like you're operating under load and having to run and rock and that just, dude, it was misery. But yeah, because at that point they didn't know who was coming in for Ranger School. They had slots open. They had National Guard people. So like even that, I was like, I hated to say no to that. And still to this day probably regret it a little bit. But at that point I couldn't stay. It was like, I'm getting out of it. Well, you tell me, I'm getting out of here. Like I don't care if I have to rent a car, whatever it is. Like I'll walk. I walked enough miles over the past 6 months. I'll walk to New Jersey if I have to. Like, I don't care. Yeah, so we came back to the pandemic, and I think I had a few days off back to JCP&L, and that was all pretty remote at that time. And
right.
It just looked bizarre.
Well, and then you ended up in DC.
Yeah.
I mean, that is crazy.
Kind of movie-like if you really think about like working for a member of Congress.
Yeah.
And then like loading your M4 on the steps of the Capitol.
That's nuts.
Yeah. We got there January 6th, I think was a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
I think we left on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, dude, like Friday, that was a wild experience. Friday, we get a text, I think it was, like, hey, I have to be in the Armory at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. It's like, for what? Like, we're getting activated to go to D.C. Okay.
Well, I've never seen D.C. like this before.
Yeah. That was it. But even that was a crazy experience, too, because, like, a lot of deployments you know about for months.
Okay, yeah.
Now, I don't necessarily call the DC thing a deployment, at least, whatever, call it activation.
When you're going somewhere, you typically know well in advance.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was a wild time. Like, to be told, like, on a Friday, like, hey, you're leaving tomorrow. Saturday ended up being, like, a medical day. We all get, like, medically approved on Sunday. Yeah, it was wild.
I mean, so how long were you down there for?
A few weeks.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I always thought it was like a week.
No, we were down there for a few weeks.
I mean, where'd they put you up?
Well, we started out sleeping at the Capitol. So, like, when everybody woke up that morning and saw all those Air Force and Army National Guard folks, I was, like, one of those people sleeping on the floor of the Capitol, which, by the way, was amazing because there were vending machines, bathrooms, warm. It was warm,
right,
you had access to the restroom, like, kind of cool. It's like taking a couple hours of a nap inside, like, where you can like go to the bathroom. Inside
a place where you previously sort of worked, I mean, or, at least had to go to for your job occasionally.
Yeah. And it was crazy. I mean, I remember the one morning we woke up, and I said it to one of the guys, I'm like, dude, see all those people with the phones? I saw the reporters filming us. See all those people, this is going to be an issue. This is going to be a thing. What do you mean? They don't want us to wash.
I know a little bit about this.
Wash. And it became a thing. I can't believe these military people are sleeping on the floor. It's like, what, dude? Like, that is literally like, we are in good surroundings right now. Like, we're safe. It was crazy. And then they put us.
Yeah, because I remember there being a lot of quote unquote, manufactured or otherwise, or maybe not, outrage. Yeah. You read the, mainstream media on that.
We're fine. We had accommodations. we had access, I think we had a hotel, but what they were doing, we did have hotels, but what they were doing, because we had weapons and ammo. So you can't bring weapons and ammo to your hotel room.
Right.
So it was costing us a few hours to get on a bus, go to the armory, return our weapons, account for the ammo. Now all of a sudden you're talking 2 hours before your shift begins, 2 hours after your shift begins. So now a 12-hour shift just turned into like 16, 17, 18 hours.
So you're getting 4 hours of sleep, maybe.
If you're lucky. So now, if we got to stay at the Capitol, which we were doing at the time, dude, we were sleeping like a full night. Fine. But...
Well, because, you guys never had to sleep on the ground before.
Dude, it's crazy. But that's what, again, the information, the political world, it was, how can we make this a bad thing? And next thing you know, I've had people text me oh my God, are you okay? Or something. Bro, I've slept in worse places. Take the military out of it.
Yeah, right? I've slept in worse places.
Yeah, how many bathtubs you slept in as a young guy? Whatever, vans.
May have happened.
Backyard chairs, bushes, whatever. So yeah, that was just. There
was this feeling. I remember some of those. News reports. I remember those articles, and I remember it was hard, right? Because you were already, look, the mainstream media in general, it's about clicks these days, right? How many people can I get to click on my website? How can I show them? It's not even mainstream media, social media, just media. How can I get the next click so that I can keep you engaged, so I can keep you on here longer, whatever the thing is. The New York Times, Instagram. And so it's always what gets clicks? Well, emotion. What fires up emotion? Outrage, that's always good. And so I remember seeing that, and just my first reaction was, yeah, they're in the military. Sometimes you sleep on the ground. You don't, if there's a better place for them to be, I assume they'd be there. I don't know, it's the Capitol. And I remember somebody telling me that there were congressmen and senators who were coming and visiting people while they were sleeping there and checking on them. That made me feel good.
A bunch of people. Yeah, you said it became the photo op of the year.
Well,
then it became, and it was, and I watched that happen too, bro. I watched people. I don't say that they did it for that, but look, man, all of a sudden you couldn't turn around at the Capitol without a politician in a suit trying to give you a pizza. Somebody, I say it kind of joking, but kind of not. Hey,
I got you guys a pizza. We'll put it on the stack.
Yeah, it's bro, look, we could be sleeping on pizza boxes. It became kind of a running joke. A politician would just be walking through the basement of the Capitol, trying to find a group that didn't have tall pizza boxes. Bro, I'm sorry.
Go down the hall, make a right.
Sorry, staffer kid. Keep walking. We have 14 pizzas in our system. It was just so. It was so. It was a crazy time, obviously in a lot of ways, but it was so that part of it to me, because I lived it, was so Washington D.C. at its best, right?
Well, it's got to be surreal for you, because unlike everybody else who's maybe in your unit and doing this, or most people down there, you know what the flip side of this is. You know literally what it's like to be that kid in that suit walking down, or that person in the office. And so while everybody else might be thinking, oh, this is novel, look at all those people with cameras, you're oh, I know where this is going. I know exactly the hay they're about to make out of all of this. This is going to be an issue. So that's got to be. That's.
It's just funny. It was so predictable, and again, I'm just grateful nobody got hurt after in the aftermath of January 6th, and I'm happy nobody got hurt, and that there appeared to be a pretty peaceful transition of power, which is very important in our country, and I don't know, man. But yeah, the mechanics of all of that, and kind of watching it from my vantage point. I remember the one kid was yo, Luna, you can take the bench, you're an old guy. And so I got to sleep on this padded bench downstairs, and but I remember waking up the next morning and I saw dude, I'm telling you, they walk around like this video, and I'm dude, watch. And then they moved us to a tour bus. So like, well, you guys can't really take a nap inside anymore because everyone made such a big deal out of that. So now 60 of you have to figure out a way to use a 40-person tour bus, not just for sleeping, but for the bathroom. And then like you're on the tour bus for an hour and you're sleeping, and 25 guys are getting up to go use that as a bathroom, and you're just like, bro, like,
can I sleep on the bench?
Can I just go back to the padded bench in the Capitol building?
I had everything I needed. I had a temperature control, bathrooms, and vending machines.
Yes.
And an endless supply
of pizza. Anybody could want.
An endless supply of pizza.
Yeah, that's why I have a hard time saying it's like, you have guys like, sure, my unit is just they're hopefully demobilizing, coming back from a deployment in the Middle East very shortly, and they saw some activity and some drone and rockets over there, and I'm just grateful that those guys. That is to me a deployment. I believe that the DC thing was called a deployment. I'll refer to it as an activation my whole life. I'm not take it away from anybody or say it was the easiest or not easiest thing.
Right. Well, no, you're just talking about your experience.
Yeah.
Like it's not, and that happens often, right? Well, that's not how I experienced it. It's like, well, yeah, that's your experience. Frank Luna's experience is different than the guy next to you, the guy down the street, the guy in another unit, whatever. They didn't let you have ammo there, right?
We did, and that's another funny thing. Like, I remember seeing the news article that we couldn't have ammo.
And, I remember reading that.
And it was so fun. Like, we kept the ammo in a mag in our pockets because, could you imagine? And
oh yeah.
A bunch of people walking around with loaded M4s around the United States building.
God forbid something goes off, whatever, is an accident.
So at least I know I had ammo. I definitely know that my guys and gals that I was with, like, we all had loaded magazines.
Right. So a couple of weeks, and then you were just back. And then
back at it.
You did what? 4 years in the National? 3.
Yeah.
3. No more. No mas.
Nah, man. Part of it was I was an old guy, like I was 41, whenever I got out, 39 or 40, like that's old to be doing like what I would say E4 stuff, like you're an E4 in the Army National Guard, like that's, I'm not saying it's not glamorous, what I'm saying at my age, the stuff we were doing, I felt like just kind of too old for it, and I did it, and there's a part of me that regrets not re-enlisting and having been on this last deployment. Like, that's going to eat at me, I think.
Yeah.
But, I couldn't know where the guys were going or what they were going to be doing. And, at the same time, too, like, you have a partner in life now who's got 2 children. And it's not a decision that I'm making for myself. It's a decision that you got to talk to a woman and look at her in the eyes and say, like, hey, I'm probably going to re-enlist. And, with that comes the possibility that I get deployed, like, for you. Like,
you got like a true romance, man. She wrote to you every day during boot camp.
A lot of letters.
You told me what?
Every day. I don't think she missed a day. I've never gone back and looked, but I don't think she missed a day right now.
And you guys didn't know each other that well when you went away, right?
A few months.
Yeah.
Well, I think we both met at the right time in our lives, and I think me going, even leaving when I did, may have given each other like the chance to go, all right, is this something we want to kind of dive into when this guy gets back?
Right.
Because it's easy first few months in any relationship. Man, it's great. It's cool.
First like 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, 10 years. What am I? So yeah, we're married 10, 12 years together, almost 13. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what that point was where we sort of got to know each other very, very well. But it definitely wasn't 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was neat, man. That was an interesting way to get to learn about someone.
Through
letters. And there was a little bit of a delay, so I would write her a letter. She'd get it in a couple days. She'd write me a letter. I'd get it in a few weeks.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it's just the way the mail system works, right? It gets sent to Fort Benning. Then it has to go from Fort Benning to your unit, and then it gets to your unit, and then guess what? There's drill service. They got to sort that stuff and give it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't feel like doing that every day. Nor should they. Nor should they.
Right.
So, some days you'd be like, man, I really hope I get a letter today. Hey, ain't gonna be no mail today, boys. Drill sergeant so-and-so's on tonight. We ain't getting any mail tonight. Damn, dude.
And then you get like a stack of them.
Yeah, you get like 17 letters.
I mean, that's how people used to communicate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how.
I wish we did it now. Even sometimes you're in. And it doesn't need to be like with your partner, but you'd be out to dinner with somebody, and all of a sudden you look at the guy across from you who's got his phone out, and then you're like, well, I guess I'll take my phone out, and then you're both scrolling through some stuff, and it's like, dude, what are we we're about to have dinner, talking about some stuff, and we're I'm looking at Instagram to see what my buddies, cousins, old football coaches having for dinner, and it's like, what?
I mean,
that's one thing I have got to figure. I had a flip phone for a while.
I remember you did.
I had a flip phone for a while. And I might do that again. Because that was actually...
I'm scared.
Here's what I think with this stuff. The flip phone, say I was going to the gym, a meeting for work, and a lunch. Leaving at 7 o'clock in the morning. I put my iPhone on call forwarding.
To the flip phone.
So anybody in my life who really needed me knew, first of all, they had the flip phone number, but they knew that if they called my cell, they just knew not to text me.
Right.
If there was a quote-unquote emergency.
Right.
So they would call my cell and my flip phone number.
Mm-hmm. I mean...
Dude, it was wildly free.
I've really thought hard about it. I think maybe the next time... See, the problem with me is I travel a lot for work.
So you don't need to do it. I'm going to travel.
Yeah, well...
But today, right? When we're done, we'll both be on our phone for 2 hours. When I'm at the gym later, I'm going to be between sets. Oh, wow, what's Cousin Tim's kid for Halloween?
Well, of course. I can't wait. I read this great article in the journal, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where somebody was talking about we've lost the art of waiting.
Yeah.
Just standing somewhere and waiting, making conversation, making small talk.
Doesn't exist anymore.
No. And you think, because you were in politics, you're a student of history a little bit. Most people that are in politics are to some degree. When you read these old letters from the 18th century, founders of our country, some of them aren't long. A couple of pages, but just the amount that they're able to get out in writing, the amount of they're able to sort of the way they're able to communicate. And they say that that's what helps you think better, is if you can write well, which I feel like I don't write well. I feel like that's probably a failing. I wish I did more. I wish I wrote more. Now, try getting somebody I work with who's under the age of 25 to write an email. Well, can I just text you? No, please write me an email. Please lay it out for me.
It's like a thing, man. But that's the thing, too. You write out a letter and, you have to think.
Yeah.
When you got your phone out, at least for me, I'm like, send, send. What the hell did I just say? Oh my God, idiot.
When you write a letter, because I did it, I'll tell you when I did a decent amount of it when I lost. So I wrote letters to people thank you letters. So I had a big stack of thank you letters, and I tried to personalize every one. Even if it was just a tidbit from a person that I knew. Because what I would see, my memory is not great. I'm good with faces, crappy with names. But when I would talk to people, and I would go back in my phone later, as soon as I got in the car from the event, I try to okay, I met these 10 people, I got their cards, I put them in my phone, and then I try to remember one thing from, has 2 kids. You know what I mean? Loves their dog. Talk to me about what's going on in Hamilton Township. They love the baseball field there. Whatever, took their kid, coaches their kid in baseball. So then I would go back and I would try to write something. And for some of these people who I knew really well, it was a whole thing. And for another, it would just be hey, really appreciate the support. Hope your kid does great, baseball this year or something. And what I remember doing that is, first off, it's pen. So if I screw up, I'm going to have to do it all over again. So you slow down and you start to really think, okay, wait a minute. Is that how I want to say it? Maybe I'll say it like this. And what I found when I got towards the end of it is, it's like anything else. and you start something like that, you're not so good at it. It takes you forever. It's really annoying. I remember getting out of shit. I'm here forever. I've got like 1,000 people to write to. This is towards the end. You just, it starts to click. It's like anything else. I feel. You want to talk about regrets in life? That's one of my regrets, that I don't write as well and I don't do it as often.
Go to writing class. You know what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to find. I gotta figure it out. I really want to learn Spanish a little better.
Yeah, I can understand it okay, but speaking it.
Yeah, because I was great at it in high school, but I haven't been in high school in a while.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
Especially like the sports stuff, which is definitely like an interest that I really am pursuing, I think, a little bit. And like, I want to be able to speak to the guys in the language that they want to speak.
I mean, how did you? I mean, so maybe it's helpful. Like, so I mean, you set up events now for huge sports people. I mean, baseball, hockey, right, football. But like, how did that happen?
I mean, that was a crazy jump. Like, I was sitting at my kitchen table one night. I was kind of bored, and I'm like, guys like us, when we end up bored, we end up on Francis the Fort Benning or setting up podcasts in our offices,
or like flying to India, or like
or going to help build a village in Africa.
Well, a lot of people for that.
Yes, but like, I'm sitting there and I'm kind of bored, and I'm like, I used to do events with the governor and members of Congress. It can't be that hard to do something really Yankees. So I just emailed, DM people, found out like a way, like, okay, who does this? What's the structure of it? Like, and I ended up getting in touch with a guy, Brandon Steiner, who worked with us, Waldo Cabrera, who's a young guy, who's become somebody. I just love the guy. Like, I cannot say enough. Like, I don't care if he was a New York Yankee or worked in a restaurant with him. I would do anything with that guy. Like, I just love him and everything about him. And do this event with Waldo. Brandon's like, hey, like, this is how much it costs. You got to give us a check that day. Like,
so you're having people come to meet him. He signs autographs.
Signs autographs. Different sponsorships. You would think about it, and I thought about it this way. I knew what number I had to get to for it. It's a low-dollar fundraiser in politics.
Right.
I need to find a couple sponsors. There's my hosts. And I know I need to sell this number of tickets at this price. How am I going to do it? Mm-hmm. I paid the bill for that event. I'm like, all right, wow. Next thing I know, we got like Aaron Boone from the Yankees. And it has developed now where you kind of form some relationships with different guys where like you can talk to them about other things. Where it's not just like, hey, I want your guy to do an autograph sign. It's like, hey, this company wants a social media presence and posts, and like, so now you can do some of the branding stuff. I'm not doing it full time. It's more just a handful of guys that I've gotten to know. It's fun. It's a nice hobby, nice side hustle.
Yeah, but most of the pictures I see, most of the stuff I see, the thing that it sounds to me like you get excited about because you're the one posting these pictures. It's always these guys with kids.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, because Bob, that's part of it too. I think for me, like, you can probably think back whether it's sports or movies or music. Like, you may have met a favorite musician when you were 13, and that made you want to be a movie star, rock star, whatever. You're like,
yeah,
something like that. Or you went to a concert and the drummer gave you a drumstick. Like, it's those moments to me can have such an impact on people. And to be somebody helping to make those moments happen for dozens and dozens of kids and parents and families is just so meaningful. It really is.
For me, it was the Misfits.
There you go.
They were like this great punk band. Sort of got me into it. And then I went to a Misfits show, and I went around the back of the venue knowing they were going to get out at some point. Like, I waited. They get out, and their bass player, Jerry Normally, I remember, people handing him autographs. He's like trying to get to the tour bus. And I just shout out, like, Jerry, do you have any advice for somebody starting a punk band? And he looks right at me, he looks me up and down, he goes, yeah, go to college. And I was like, oh, well, that's depressing. And for years, I was like disappointed.
Amazing.
I was disappointed. Many years later, we're touring, we've got a name, so we open up for them at this venue out in Lancaster. And so now you're a band. You're direct support for them, so like you're not some dude, you're working together. And so they get there, and I see him, and we talk a little bit. They say hi. And I said, well, hey, you don't remember this, nor should you, but years ago, I stood behind this venue and this show. He's like, yeah, I remember that show. I said, and I asked you, I yelled out over the crowd, like, do you have any advice for teenage kids starting a punk band? He's like, what did I tell you? I said, you said go to college. He looked right at me and he goes, did you go? I said, yeah, I did. He goes, how do you feel now? I said, I feel like if this doesn't work out, I'm going to be okay. He goes, sounds like it was pretty good advice then.
How cool is that?
But, you know, the guy's a father, you know what I mean? Like, he's been through it. So, I mean, you know, yeah, it was a nice full circle. But every photo I see of your Instagram with this stuff, it's just like these kids who are so like, they're meeting their hero, right? I mean, you get to impact so many freaking people's lives because they get to meet whoever their sports hero is, you know?
And that, it's a fun, again, it's a hobby. It's, you know, fun little way to make a little side hustle, you know. It's but exactly that. It's like, it's meaningful. And that's, I think, to me, where, like, I try to spend my excess times on meaningful things. I'm not great at it. A lot of nights I'm doom scrolling, and, you know, Jill's on the couch and I'm on the couch, and, you know, we're both doom scrolling. It's like, man, it's like, what are we doing right now? And that happens. But, you know, a lot of I've been busy. It keeps me out of trouble. I like helping people. So, you know, all those things kind of, and I think there's value to the players as well. Number one, there's financial gain, but number two, like, it's good for them to be around the fans and to hear from the kid who looks up to them, and, you know, because look, these guys just lost the freaking World Series.
Yeah.
That hard. That must, like, we lost an election. I've been part of losing campaigns. That's really tough to lose a freaking multi-million-dollar campaign, you know, especially when it's, you know, some of your own assets involved. Sure. Like, and then, like, you wake up the next day, and, like, the last thing you want to do is, like, talk politics at that point. It's like, but with these guys, like, they just lost the World Series Monday night. 3 of them are going to be at an event in New York City for the Boys and Girls Club. So, like, get on a horse, bro. Like, you just lost the freaking World Series. And guess what? A few nights later, we're going to be at this event with a bunch of kids raising money for the Boys and Girls Club.
I mean, I think it's different, too. I remember when I lost the biggest... I don't know how other people felt. I only know how I felt. I remember my biggest disappointment was for all of those volunteers we talked about earlier. Like, look, I used to tell people this all the time. I don't go into anything to lose in life. I never have. Like, that's just not the way I'm built. I never feared failure. Some people do, and I get that. You know, some people. But for me, like, failure just never scared me. So I never go into anything to lose. But I remember before I decided to do that, thinking, all right, and I used to meditate on this. Walk yourself through the day after and you've lost. Not like, how do you feel? Okay, you wake up. You pick up your phone. Who's the first text message? What does it say? How do you feel? Do you respond or do you not? You go downstairs, you see your wife, you see your daughter. What's the first thing out of your mouth? Now you're eating breakfast. You're eating breakfast and you've lost. How does that look like? And before I said yes to doing that, I could go through that whole day in my mind. And I felt like that was really good because I'd sort of already taken the sting out of it, the fear out of it. So when it happened, I was okay. Like, you know, I was back at work. I think I conceded, you know, the election was over on Tuesday. Vote counts weren't until Thursday morning, so I conceded Thursday afternoon. And my deal with my partner, my business partner, was, because I remember him saying, well, what happens if you lose? I said, I go back to work. That's what happens if I lose. So I conceded Thursday afternoon. Friday morning, I was back in the office. Like, there was no, like, it's Friday, I'll wait till Monday. I was like, no, okay, I'm done. But I remember being really, like, I remember my team in the room, tears, freaking tears. And just thinking, they don't deserve this. I deserve this because it's my name on the line. I did this knowing full well that this could happen, but these people all worked really freaking hard. And none of them just, for the effort that they put in, everybody that I'm really lucky. Everybody I got to work with on the field. Other teams maybe not, whatever, every campaign's different. I can tell you that my people that I worked, the team that we had, paid, volunteer, whatever, there wasn't anybody there by the end of that was a fighter, that wasn't putting. And so I just remember feeling like, I wish I could have brought it home for you guys. Like, forget about me. And so to this day, when I meet people who are volunteers, I met people, I went and got Chinese Thursday after the Thursday I lost. Afternoon, I concede. Thursday night, like, there's no food in the house. It's the end of a campaign. Nobody's done any shopping. I'm smoked because the adrenaline's starting to run out now. So the adrenaline's starting to run out, and I remember my wife saying, "What are we doing for dinner?" I was like, "Let's just get Chinese," which we don't, like, we're pretty healthy. I was like, "Let's just go get Chinese food." And I remember going down Main Street in my town. And I remember getting out, parking my car in front of the pizza place, which is 2 doors down from the Chinese place. And the owner was like a big supporter of mine, Kay. And he walks out, he's like, wow, like, I'm so sorry. And then he goes, "I'm sure you don't want to hear this." I was like, Kay, actually, I want to hear everything you have to say about this. Because, like, I don't know, it makes you, at least for me, like, I don't get tired of people who helped me out wanting to talk about it. Like, it's not the last thing I want to talk about. I want to hear about your experience. I want to, it meant something to you, which means that it wasn't a waste of my time, And so, like, when I think about, like, guys that want, you lose the World Series, you lose a campaign, right? If you've got the outlook of it's not all about me, right? It's about my team. It's about the people that who are you playing for? If you're playing for you, yeah, man, your life's going to suck. Yeah. But that's the way it is in life in general, right? Like, if I'm doing everything for me and I'm the center of everything, when things don't work out, I'm going to be a very depressed and angry person. But, like, if I'm working for the people around me, if I'm playing for the people around me, I mean, we talked about it earlier. You were with, when you worked with Tom, right? It wasn't like, yeah, I'm working for a great guy, but I remember you were saying, we had a really great team. Because, like, anything you do in life can get boring, it can get rote, it can get, it gets tiring. I've always found, like, what keeps me coming back is the people I do it with, right?
And that too, like, you can talk about loss, like, I remember saying to the staff, like, the only thing that sucks worse than losing is sucking at losing.
Yeah.
And it's like, look at it. Like, look, man, we lost. Have a good face about it. Yep. And I, for the most part, did have a pretty good, I had one, like, spaz out moment with a family member where, they were just trying to, like, feed me too much positivity. I wasn't hearing it. I couldn't hear it. And I just kind of lost it a little bit. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that right now. And, like, but they were obviously coming from a place of love, and I was so bothered and just.
Well, what's the one thing an angry person? What's the one thing an angry person hates the most? A happy person. So, I mean, yeah, I had a moment or two there.
Yeah, but she put it all on the line in, like, a way that. So, first of all, from, like, a staff level, like, being a staffer was easy. You put your name on the line, you're on the ballot, and it's like you lost. You know what I mean? Like, sure. And that's what I used to say to the staff, like, man, we wish we could get over for you. And that's the thing too, like, no, I mean, but that's the way it is. I mean, that's just what it is. That's when you have a good dynamic. Yeah, because T-Mac, dude, that guy, after we lost, anybody who wanted him to write a letter of recommendation, he was calling actively, like, yeah.
One of the first thing I did that next Monday was I called everybody up on the team. It was like, what are you going to do now? What are you thinking of? And then, for the people that I knew who wanted to go on and keep doing this, I called around to everybody I knew. I was like, hey, I'm a really good person. Like, if you've got a slot, people who, because when you run in this stuff, as you know, you meet people who are running from all parts of the world. And the ones that win, they got to staff up, and pretty quickly. And so I would call anybody I knew who I made friends with and say, hey, I've got this great person. They're looking for a job. Like, they're going to need a home, and so I'm really happy that a bunch of people that worked with me and that who wanted to stay in doing this ended up going on to keep doing it, and some of them found some homes, and I was happy to be as helpful as I could. They deserve a lot more than that.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, it's like anything else in life. If you're doing it just for you,
good point.
You're going to be disappointed. So where can people find you if they want to see what you're doing?
Somewhere on the Jersey Shore, bro. I ain't too far from there, man. Social media, find me on there if you want.
What's your Instagram?
Frank Luna NJ. But
and then at the Jersey Shore, just look on look at traffic posts, and you'll see stickers that say it's a good day for a good day.
Day for a good day. Find me bartending at Stone Pony in the summer.
Well, we didn't even talk about that, man. I mean, you just do it to do it. See live music.
See live music, and Jill works there too, which is freaking awesome. It's kind of like a mini date night.
That's a good way to think about it.
And make a little money doing it. That's a really cool spot. It's the summer stage, so it's
it's the outside stage.
5,000 person capacity, whatever it is. But we ride our bikes up the boardwalk. When we can. I mean, sometimes we can't, but that's fun. I mean, that's just So you find me there in the summer, but what a spot in the summer for me to connect with people. Because I know a bunch of people that are coming through, and it may be somebody I know from politics, or somebody I know who's an agent from baseball, or somebody who works in the line shop with my day job, or whatever it is, and they know if there's a summer stage, where you can find me, and it's it gets tiring, those are a lot of shows. Some of those shows are a lot of hours, and if you have 3-4 in a row, you remember being in the band, but now I think of the support staff that's there 3 hours before doors open, and just but it's fun, dude. Again, that's fun little side hustle Joe and I can do together. And
well, listen, man, thanks for hanging out, bro.
Appreciate it.
Frank Luna, you're one of a kind, buddy.
So good. I gotta get me one of these offices.
I know a guy.
Well, appreciate you, man. Thanks, bro.
That's all for today's journey down the Offbeat Path. Hope this episode's inspired you to forge your own unique trail. And if you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe, please share with a friend, and definitely leave us a review. Your support helps the community grow. Remember, the road less traveled is often the most rewarding. Till next time, this is Bob Healy, encouraging you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and above all, keep forging your own unique path. See you on the next episode.